Do we have a brave soul who has a question? Yes, ma'am. Okay.
My question is how can you let Amy Zuren and Tim O'Keefe run for Willoughby-Eastlake Board of Education when you know that they're not for the Willoughby-Eastlake Board of Education?
I can answer that.
I drive around school, and I see signs, Tim O'Keefe, and right next to it is, do not vote left, issue 6. The same with Amy Zuren. How can you let people like this run for the board?
Well, I think if they circulated petitions and followed the procedures, they got on the ballot.
Excellent point.
They have a lot of money to do.
If you recall, on your donation, it's complicated in America because there might be somebody right next to you that is totally against what you say, but we have to allow them to speak. And we have to allow those people to run.
You know what their views are.
Well, and I mentioned something about half-truths. And hopefully I got that point out.
You did.
Would any other candidate or the superintendent like to respond to the question about? Do we have another question from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to know if Amy Zuren or Tim O'Keefe appeared at any of the community meetings.
I'm not from the community.
Have they been in any? They have?
She asked whether Amy Zuren and Tim O'Keefe had appeared at any other forums. They were at Breckenridge Village
Yeah.
and Eastlake.
Mr. O'Keefe was at.
Thank you. And Mr. Kovachowski. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, I think if we could just run through, can each of the candidates tell us, did you vote for the levy in May? And are you supporting the levy? I mean, I think most people said that, but are you supporting the levy now on November 5th? And then if anybody who was at those other dates that Amy Zuren and Tim O'Keefe were at, can you tell us how they answered those questions at the previous forums?
I think we're going to have them answer their position and let the other two candidates stand for themselves.
Did anyone hear me answer?
I voted for the last levy, and I will again vote for this levy.
I voted for the levy in May, and I voted for the levy 2 weeks ago when I voted early. I understand how the levies work, and I appreciate the levies. A lot of people don't. And if more people did, I think we'd have more people taking into consideration the investment that a levy is, but the payback, the return you get on it in a vibrant school system.
Yes, I voted for the levy. I support all levies.
Yes, I supported all levies. And I'll vote for this one too.
Yes, I voted for this levy, and I support all school levies.
Thank you. Is there another question from the audience? Yes, sir.
My question is for Mr. Bliss. You talked about the funding and you wanted to fund within Ohio and get rid of the federal handouts. With all of the cuts that have come down from the last two budgets that we have seen in Ohio and the drastic reduction that Mr. Thompson has talked about, how would you intend to fund and replenish or replace that funding we have lost over the last two budgets in Ohio, and why would you want to get rid of federal funding? Because there are many services from federal funding, such as Title I, which directly affect our kids with disabilities.
And we're going to let all the candidates answer this question, and we'll start with
Mr. Bliss.
Mr. Bliss.
Two things with it. What I mentioned is right. I would like to see us go to more of an internal funding for our schools and get away from DC. Has the federal funding helped us at all with the budget? Yeah. A lot. Why are we still having it cut?
That was the state budget I was talking about. From Columbus, they cut the budget drastically the last two cycles.
And that's a state issue, and we need to develop language with the state officials to fund all the school systems in Ohio, the school districts in Ohio better and more efficiently. See, with federal funds comes different repercussions. I mean, it's a little given this. The Ohio Department, or the United States Department of Education has to fund states to fund schools. That's their only job. They can't dictate standards, they can't dictate curriculum, but with some of the federal money comes the stipulation that you incorporate certain curriculum and certain state standards. So you gotta get creative about it, and I understand the cuts, and we can't operate a school at state, or district at state minimum, and we can't operate it with a skeleton crew.
The state has
We're almost
adopted
there
Common
already.
Core as well.
We're 1% away from the minimum.
Can we let one of the other candidates?
You mentioned the statement included, your statement included Common Core, you didn't tell me that in the first.
That the state has also adopted Common Core.
For now. But it's going to cost more money to adopt it. If you've gone, and I've talked to people in Wisconsin where they've adopted it and they're trying to get it thrown out. It's costing the state, they don't know the final price tag of what it's going to cost the state to implement it. As far as developing tests, sending out the tests, retraining teachers. They don't know the final number. Why would you want to gamble on something like that?
The state has adopted Common Core, and the park testing, which is part of Common Core, has been adopted by the state as well, and the districts have been preparing for it over the last couple of years.
Let me go over the rules again. This is for questions, not for the audience to make speeches. So if I'm going to let all of the candidates respond to the question of federal and state cuts in funding. And we'll go with Mr. Hoffman.
Lucky me. Listen, the problem is my first year on the board, I went to a meeting, I forget where it was, and the state treasurer was there, and he stood up and he said that the funding is illegal, what we do in the state of Ohio. Okay, I'm not the most genius person here. Well, if it's illegal, then how do we keep on doing it? And as you address this issue, the state's cutting back funds for us, and we do try to work and do the best job we can. Believe me, we do. And we've done the past year, 2 years, we've done an incredible job in cutting funds or money to compensate for what we're losing. Somebody else?
I guess one of the ways I look at this is what my role is as a school board member. And my role as a school board member is to put the district in the best position to improve the quality of instruction for our students. And that typically means taking as much of the money that's being offered to us and understanding that yes, with money, like with Race to the Top, or with the new proposal for straight A grants, there are strings attached. We make sure that the strings attached don't outweigh the benefit. And then if we make that analysis, then we go for it. Because we have to get creative. At one of the candidates forums earlier this year, a woman made the remark that we were going to make up for the budget shortcomings if we didn't pass the levy by holding a chili cook-off. And our superintendent made the point of that was going to make $5,000. We have to keep that in mind. And I'll go back to the superintendent. My job as a school board member, there are going to be laws and things that I don't care for. But that's not an argument for the school board. That's an argument for our legislatures, and that's bigger than us. So what do? I look at the hand that we're dealt, and I make sure that the instruction that's taking place for the kids in our schools every day is as good as it possibly can be.
I agree. Whether or not we totally agree with any of these programs, at the district level, there are still things we can do the best we can do because we care about what happens in these classrooms every day. The problem is that the funding changes depending on what's happening at the state and federal level. We can never rely on the money. Every year it's different. So as a board member, we do the best we can with the hand we're dealt. And that's the way it is right now, unfortunately, till things change at the state and federal level as far as how schools are funded.
I think I've forgotten the question.
I think that it's federal and state cuts are funded.
I think what Randy is talking about is, if we don't take the federal funding, then we don't have to accept their curriculum. And I believe in, I would never say that. We want our federal funding, we want our state funding. I believe in the federal curriculum.
Do we have another question from the audience?
Question for Rusty Bliss. You said that we need more administrative oversight in the district, and there's a lot that we don't see. Can you explain that?
When I see a board meeting,
When I see a school board meeting, they seem like they're going pretty fast, pretty smooth, which is awesome. Efficiency is a good thing. And I've talked to Dan in the past, and I know there's things that you guys discuss before a meeting starts that may make it look like everything's really streamlined. The public needs to see the debate. The public needs to see the discussion. That's where the trust thing comes in. The meeting doesn't have to be an hour long. The meeting can be 5 hours long. That stuff that's discussed maybe before a meeting is public knowledge. The taxpayer should see and hear all the stuff that's being discussed. And unless it's as far as policy and stuff that hasn't been implemented in the policy manual, then it becomes public knowledge. But there's the premise among the public. I'm not a school employee. I'm just a dumb old airline captain. And I'm used to paying attention to detail all the time. It's my job. It keeps me alive. It keeps the guys I train alive. But there's a public perception that some things are being missed. I'm not in there. I can't tell you exactly what's missed, but I'd like to get in there and see. And I'm not talking about just once a month, maybe twice a month. I'll call him up, go meet him for lunch. What are we doing about this? What are we doing about that? Staying on that. I don't know, but I know what the public perception is because I'm not inside there. And that's where I get at with that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, we do.
you said that you think
Actually, I think the lady right here. And then I'll come over.
Mr. Bliss, you had mentioned that you said for now the Common Core is adopted by the state.
Right.
Can you elaborate why you have a feeling that maybe it's not going to be? You just said for now. Is there a reason you think it might be going away?
And I'm going to let all of the candidates answer the question about Common Core.
Because, first of all, as everybody in here familiar with House Bill 237 that was adopted or introduced, there's also been 2 supplement bills attached to it that have been adopted, admitted. And it may not be gaining momentum. Look, I know how the elected officials work. I ran for the U.S. Senate 2 years ago, so there's not a lot of people that do what they say when they get an elected office as far as representing their constituency. The constituency in Ohio, from what I saw down in Columbus in that initial hearing, was that the parents, the students, and a lot of the teachers are not for it. But yet the elected officials will still have an internal agenda, no matter what side of the political spectrum they're on, to make sure that it goes ahead. Hey, Casey's getting a ton of money to put this program into play. He's getting a ton of money for the Medicaid. He's getting a ton of money for all the Obamacare stuff that people, are still going to lose their insurance. But it's not a done deal. There are 16 states, including Ohio, that have legislation on the books to reverse it. There are 5 states that have banned it altogether.
Common Core every day and mentor. I'm proceeding with our district as though the Common Core is here to stay. I attended a seminar last week called An Uncommon View of the Common Core, where the representative who introduced the bill to repeal Common Core was there to speak, and I do not think that he has the support neither from his fellow representatives nor from our governor for that to move forward. I work with the Common Core. I see the standards that are there. It's changing for our teachers. It's a lot of work. It's going to be the new assessments are going to be a lot of change for our kids. But I'll go back to what I said before. Our reality, what I'm working with right now, is the Common Core is here to stay.
I agree with Larry that the Common Core is here. This is not a local debate. This is something that is just not something we discuss in Facebook pages and what have you. But I do believe in Common Core.
Yeah, I also agree. Our job as school board members is to support the curriculum that we hire the specialists to design, and if this is the direction we're going right now. And I agree with it. I also want to address briefly, Rusty, your comment about how smoothly things go at school board meetings. Come to a work session. It's not all sweetness and light, believe me. And they are always in the paper whenever we have work sessions. You are welcome. We have people who come and listen to us argue. It's very enlightening. So please, if you think what we do at a school board meeting is all we do, it's not. We have lots of meetings behind the scenes.
I don't argue. Obviously, that's an inside joke. Listen, I don't want to say I'm an expert in the Common Core, but I've been working with it for quite a long time. I think it's a great tool, if you will, to assist teachers and students with the basic fundamentals, whether it be math or language arts. Let me give you an example. Common Core. First grade. Students must know where a decimal point goes. They must also know that the first letter in a sentence is capitalized. Hello? That's important, I think, right? All those things are important. In the math aspect of it, we have videos that show all this with the grammar and also with math, explaining fractions, decimals, conversion, things that need to be known by students and teachers that are basic fundamentals. These are all done for kids. I don't see a problem with this. I don't know about you, but not that I'm old. I guess I am. We had to do rote memory and memorize everything, didn't we? Yeah, the Common Core kind of like gets rid of that and make sure that you know definitively what's going on. And I spent the whole summer putting together a package, which I think is very good. As a matter of fact, we are the only school district in the United States that has it.
Is there?
My question is for Mr. Bless. I'm sure I can figure it out. Mr. Bless, you talked about 5-hour board meetings and that you think the public hearing those things that Mrs. New Year spoke about that are happening in work session is a good thing. Why do you think that would instill trust, listening to 5 hours of people bantering? And then my second question for you, so that's my first question. My second question is, I think you said you've lived here for 13 years, correct? In that time, how many board meetings have you attended?
Say a dozen.
Question is about attending board meetings and whether 5-hour board meetings would help with the trust issue.
The 5 hours is a number picked out, just like the hour of the streamlined meetings. What I have taken in from the public and people that I live by is that there's a trust issue. They see these things and they don't know the issues within the board are being discussed. I get the term thrown at me, the rubber stamps, the constant shaking of the head, nodding of the heads. When people see that that stuff's going so smoothly and then we end up with these road bumps and levy issues and people don't understand how the levies work, if they see the board interacting on a regular basis, I'd like to come down there and stand in line and ask my question. I'd like to see families that have grievances with the district be able to stand at a board meeting and have their grievance addressed by the superintendent and the board all in attendance. I know a couple families that have told me directly that they can't.
They do that.
Oh,
I attend a lot of work. They do that.
You know, I'm not here to pick sides, and I'm not picking sides, but let's be very clear. I do my homework before I put things on the board agenda, and that's my job, to do my homework before I put things on the board agenda. That's all public record, and people frequently, records request information from me regularly, and we submit that information to those folks. We post as much information as we can on the district website. And people come to board meetings regularly. They ask questions. We never, in my tenure here, and I'm sure it goes beyond my tenure here, we have never told a person they could not address the board. In fact, 3 people addressed the board at our last board meeting. And I believe we answer every single question if there is a question to be answered. If it's just a statement, we may not respond immediately, but I'll, at the very least, exchange numbers with them and follow up with them if I don't have the information for them at that point. So most of the time, we address and answer those questions on the spot. So the notion that the community can't participate at board meetings, I can definitively tell you in the last 2 years that's not the case. Fact is, most people don't come to board meetings.
We'll just go down the line here. Do we have another question? Yes.
I've been to a lot of Mentor Board of Education meetings. I haven't been to Willoughby Board of Education meetings. I have attended the town hall meetings that Mr. Thompson has put on. I want to make sure that I'm real clear on that. One other point I wanted to make, I think a lot of what we're talking about here comes down to people who have extreme views and don't listen to reason. And I worry that one person with extreme views, a person who's being unreasonable, can really slow down the momentum that we're starting to gain as a district. We might never see that, but I know what it looks like. I know what it looks like when the superintendent goes to the board with an idea and says, hey, I'd like to do this, I'd like to spend X amount of dollars for this initiative. Well, we want you to come back. We want you to come back a month later, another month later. School years go by very quickly. And before you know it, the year's gone by and we haven't made any progress. So while it might seem like there's still a majority rules, it's going to make his job, or who's ever in that job, his or her job, the superintendent's job, that much more difficult, which, believe me, will impact the quality of instruction that takes place in our classrooms.
Another question. Go up here.
I'd like to go back to the Common Core curriculum that's being adopted as of 2014. I hear a lot about reading, English, math. What happens to the history books? What happens to the science classes? Are those things going to still be taught in the schools as much as they have been? Because I don't hear anything leading me to believe that those things are still of importance.
Should one more track shoes. Let's start over here.
Somebody should help her.
You know, you don't have to elect him, but you do have to elect these people, so I'm going to have that answer.
Right now, the Common Core only involves the reading, English, and math. It doesn't involve the science and social studies. Text, I'm not sure about that, but...
Okay, we're going to have an answer about the textbooks.
Remember I said originally that what you see here is what you get? Okay, I'm glad you remember that. The new textbooks coming out, they're gearing them towards the Common Core to help facilitate the student and the teacher to make things a lot easier. And I stated before, from Willoughby-Eastlake, we are the only school district in the United States that has math, and now I'm working with grammar on the Common Core. I'm one person. I would like to work in science and the rest of those, but they haven't come into play yet, and they're going to. So I can't speak intelligently about something I need more time. Okay, I can only go, seriously, trust me, I would not try to steer you wrong. But the books that are coming out, the textbooks, are written for the Common Core. All the new ones are.
And I can't really answer your question, but if you call the Board of Education and you ask to talk to the curriculum director, she could give you all the details as to what you're interested in with the history and the science.
I just wanted to know if those things are still going to be
Yes.
full time in the classroom and the other stuff. That's basically what I meant.
History's important because you don't want to repeat what you've done in the past, right?
Right.
And science.
The Common Core doesn't cover every subject matter. However, you have to also keep in mind that as part of the introduction, well, part of what's not going away are the OAAs, the Ohio Achievement Test. So we're still testing students in science, social studies, across the curriculum. If you take a look at what we're doing this school year, in fact, we're putting more emphasis on science. Because if you were to analyze the data, fifth grade, for example, is an area where our science scores decline. So we recognize that, and we're making adjustments to what we're doing to try and bring those scores up. Obviously, they're an indication of what's happening every day in the classroom. They're not the end-all, be-all, but it's an indicator to us that that perhaps there are some issues there. So those classes still aren't going away. End-of-course exams are coming in the high school. So what an end-of-course exam means, for example, in Algebra 1, every student across the state would take the same Algebra 1 exam. So those end-of-course exams are coming, eventually replacing the Ohio graduation test, the OGT, that our current 10th graders take. So all these changes are coming. Most of the testing is through a company called PARC, and it's online. So that's, when you talk about unfunded mandates, that is an unfunded mandate that's been very costly to our school district. That's why we had to put Wi-Fi in our buildings, and that's why we have such an emphasis trying to buy machines, although there's a lot of good purposes beyond testing for those machines, but it certainly is an impetus that we have to file all our kids through testing in a 2-week time cycle, and if we don't do that, we're significantly disadvantaging them. So all of that's coming without funding associated with it, which means we're taking general fund money, spending it there, and having to reallocate our resources because we've done nothing but lose funds. That's why you should vote yes for the levy. Plug. It's a renewal.
And Steve gave you a good example of what's going on now. But if you see a full model of this, Common Core in its purest form butts heads with the STEM programs. This is a Washington PTA group, right? Mostly?
No.
I thought it was there.
No.
All right, well, let's talk about the gifted programs. The gifted programs are unfunded in Race to the Top. The Javits Act that was enacted years ago was unfunded by the Congress in 2011 by the Obama administration. Doesn't fund gifted programs anymore. Why would you, if you had a gifted child in one of those programs, support something that puts a federal veil in a one-size-fits-all education system? Kids don't learn the same way. Kids can't be taught the same way, but this program does that. You mentioned PARC. What's PARC do with the kids' information that they get, the family information they get? They share it through the company that underwrote it, which is Achieve Inc., which was also underwritten by Bill and Melinda Gates. Bill and Melinda Gates are all about control. Bill and Melinda Gates are about population control, which is another unimportant thing, but control of education, and that word control is bad, especially at a federal level. Education is a state and local issue, not a federal issue. So that information from your kid, your personal information, is being shared to fuel the national economy down the road. That's not their job. Your kids want to grow up and do something they want to do. You know, these kids here want to grow up and do something they want to do. They're not going to be allowed to do that under this.
I'm not really sure what the question is at this point. But something struck me as I'm sitting here, and I figure if I'm going to be allowed to talk, I'm not going to go ahead and do it. It bothers me that has really dominated our conversation so far is lost what it is that we want our schools to do, especially in elementary school. Having spent 3 years as an elementary school principal and watching those kids come in every day and how excited they are and eager to learn and build relationships and just love school. And it really bothers me, all of the emphasis on assessments and of course exams. Believe me, I don't want us to do poorly on those. But so much of what we do is more than just that in the school. And we need to comply and we need to work within the parameters, deal with those mandates, but not forget why these schools were built in the first place, to be focused on learning, but be places where kids really want to come. So that's what, I guess over the last 15, 20 minutes, I want to make sure that I say loudly and clearly. I think that the work, we want our kids to enjoy coming to school and feel welcome every day. Without that, they won't learn anything.